Today, we're making the project recipe Bee Mine, as in honeybee. And it is from 2018, and it has these two pages. And I'm noticing of something a little different. On the left, there's only one photo, but I'm going to add more photos. And I think overall, it's a beautiful base page. If we look at the sketch, we'll see that the decorative background is shown here in white, but the major pieces are piece A, B, D, and E. The other pieces are either mats or strips of paper, and I'll determine where I'm going to get these strips from, but I'm thinking scrap paper will probably be better than cutting into a whole new sheet. The cutting guide calls for 3 designer papers. The first designer paper cuts piece A, B, and D, and also a little piece down here is piece C. And then designer paper number 2 cuts piece E. And most of the others are mats for photos, but since my photos won't be this size, I'm not cutting them. Designer paper 3 is just these little strips of paper, and then it shows that you can punch some shapes, but I'm not going to do that yet. I'm not going to cut a whole new designer paper to punch some shapes. I will figure out how to decorate the page as I go along. I've chosen 3 papers to make this project recipe. First, for the background, I've chosen this paper, and it comes from the Your Own Way Tone on Tone paper pack. The second paper that I've chose is to be used for piece E, and it is also from Your Own Way, and it's from the designer paper pack. And the third paper is for piece A, B, and D, and I'm going to use both sides of it, and it's from the Through the Years 1920 to 1930s. This project recipe is fast and easy to make. These older versions, this one is from 2018, put the measurements on the paper for each piece here. So I'm going to cut piece A at 2 inches by 11, piece B at 7 inches by 11, and piece D at 3 inches by 11. So in order to get it, I'm just going to cut this block off and cut 1 inch away, and then I'll have a 12 by 11 sheet, and then I'll cut it at 2 inches and then 7 inches, and I'll have 3 inches remaining. On the second sheet, I just cut piece E at 4.5 by 8.5. And then whatever is remaining of that, I will decide how I'm going to use it, maybe for some of the decorative elements on the layout. My paper doesn't appear to have much direction. I can cut it this way or that way, and it's a really pretty paper. And the same goes on the back, so there's no strong direction of the paper either way. So I'm going to cut 1 inch away, or cut it at 11 inches. And now I'm going to cut my 2 inch by 11 piece. Then my 7 inch by 11 piece. And that leaves me with a 3" by 11 piece. My second paper to cut is also free from any strong direction, even though on this side it looks a little vertical this way. So piece E is right here, and it's going to go on my layout horizontally. So when I cut it, I want to orient my paper so that when I put the paper on my layout, it's going to have the directionality I want. So I want the paper to be on here horizontal like this. And unlike what the cutting guide shows, cutting piece E like in this direction, I'm going to cut piece E that way. Now I'm going to cut this at 4.5 inches. And now I'm going to cut it at 8.5 inches. So we have our pieces cut. And now we can just look at our sketch to see where they go. Now I notice on the sketch that the corners are rounded. And it's hard to tell from this photo. I can't tell if they are rounded or not. I'm likely going to round the corners because I do like that look, and I see that they have the rounded corner look over here, and it does show distinctively. So now I'm just placing the main pieces on the page the way that the sketch calls for, and it turns out to be just that simple. Now it also calls for those 1-inch strips. So now I'm looking at where those strips go on the layout. And there are 4 of them. There's piece C, piece K, piece L, and piece M. L and M are from the same designer paper from the 3rd paper. Piece C is 4.5 by 1 inches. And this piece of paper right here is already 4.5 inches. So I could cut it and put it right there. And I like that look. So I'm going to use this 1-inch strip that was left over, and I'm going to make it piece L. I'm going to cut from this piece left over and make it piece C. It will be 4.5 by 1 inches. Piece L will be 9.5 inches by 1 inch. And then I'm going to cut 2 strips of this. One I'll use the front side and one I'll use the back side to be piece K and piece M. And piece K is 7.5 inches and piece M will be 7 inches, all by 1 inch. So this is sort of the dry fit of how this unclad project recipe is laid out, and I really like it. I am going to corner round this corner and that one, and these 2 corners. And in a moment before I adhere it all down, I'm going to lay down my photos. Now, before I put my own photos down on the page, this is the look from the project recipe. However, I'm using different sizes photos with these Creative Memories photo mats for 2 reasons. One, I don't have any of the mats that show the sizes that the project recipe has. And 2, I think that these 5.5 by 3.5 sizes represent what people scrapbook today better than having photos that are the sizes called out for. Now, one of the things, it doesn't even say what size this photo is, but I'm going to take the assumption that it's a 6x4 photo, but it doesn't really look like it's that big. It looks like it's more likely a 3.5 by 5.5 photo from the picture. But since most of us use 4x6 photos, I'm going to put one here and it shows that it fits. And my photo to go right there is going to be 6x4. It also calls for all of these photos on the right to be 4.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So I have the 3.5 inches, but my pictures are 5.5 as shown with these placeholders. But this is why I like the project recipes as basis, because you can put any configuration of photos that will work for you. So next, I'm going to get this base made and then put my photos onto it. Okay, now I have my photos down. On my right side here, I've adhered the paper, and before doing so, I rounded the corners here and here. And I've laid down my photos. I do have 3 photos, just like the sketch, but they are not as wide. These are 3 inches tall by 4 inches wide. This photo is a horizontal instead of a vertical. And I added these 2 additional photos to the layout. So I like the fact that this page was a base that I could put my photos down in a configuration that I like. And now that I have my photos down, I ask, do I want to have mats around them? And my answer is yes, I do. And I have the space to add mats around my photos. I just have to decide what color I want, and I'm leaning towards white or beige at this time, maybe beige cardstock. So that's my right hand side. So on my left side, I have not adhered the papers because I wanted to see how my photos were going to lay out. And there are no instructions specifically saying how to put the papers down. And so I'm going to think this is how I want them to go. Originally, I had planned to put all 3 of these 3x4 photos down at the bottom in a row, but it takes away and covers up some of this design elements for the strips. And really, these 2 pictures go together, and this really goes with that. So I decided to move it up with this, and I like that. It's going to go over a little bit to this piece here, this darker rounded corner piece, which I like. It gives it kind of a grounding base. And my 4x6 here is going to fit just right, and it all helps it to stand out. So I'm liking this. These do not need a mat, in my opinion. However, I think if I mat these over here, matting these will help as well. And this photo placement will also allow for the decorative element of the 1-inch strips to be seen and appreciated on the layout. And that still leaves me quite a good little spot here to journal. And I do want to tell a little bit of the story about what's happening in these pictures. This is me writing, I think it's called The Forbidden Journey at the Universal Studios Island of Adventure in the Harry Potter world. And I think this is one of the first Harry Potter rides they had. And while I think it's a lovely ride, it does make me sick. And I can tell from the look on my face that I was trying not to get too sick on that ride. And so I think I have my eyes closed. So now that I know my layout, I am going to adhere my paper and mat these photos, and we'll see where we take it from there. I've decided to show you how I am arranging my papers down just in case you're curious. Now, this gold piece was already on, and it is a half an inch from the top, and the right hand side is also half an inch from, so you have a half-inch margin at the top and the bottom. And then on the right hand side, the 3-inch side that is in this paper is just butted up against it. However, this paper overlaps, and that's why I wanted to show how I'm going to arrange this. So I want to show how I'm putting especially these pieces on, because I want this to be 1 full inch down from the top of the edge of the paper and 1 inch over. So I'm putting this piece down 1 inch and over 1 inch. And this ruler right here that goes over the mat makes that so easy. And then this piece just goes right up against it, just like that. Nice and easy. Here is our finished layout. I matted all of the photos. I trimmed a 1/4 inch off of each photo except for these two. They remain their original size, 4x6 and 3x4. I trimmed a 1/4 inch off, so now this is 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. This one is still 6 inches wide, but now it's 3.5 inches tall. And then I added an embellishment cluster here and a journaling spot that I embellished a bit on the left side here. And to bring some cohesion, I used one sticker that I got from Wanderlust, and I used the admission ticket punch and the slide reel punch by Creative Memories to create these embellishments. I just made a notched banner here, and then here I rounded the corner. I took the last little bit of this paper and put it right here because I wanted to bring some of this gold all the way across the paper. And this multicolor here, I brought over here at this ticket so it would spread across the page. And I made this notched banner so that the dark sea green would also be on both sides of the page. And I'm very pleased with how this project recipe turned out. I was able to get my photos onto a base page that really is a lot different from the layout that the project recipe started off with. But that just goes to show the versatility of the project recipes and how they are an inspiration, and that you can read the instructions and then tailor them to work with the layout you want to get made. I hope that you enjoyed watching this video and that you will like the video, subscribe to the channel, and YouTube's going to pop up another video, and I hope you'll watch it also. Have a fine, scrappy day.